Do you think they made the right choice in firing both Malone and Booth?
No, I don't. It's a little hard not being in the room, right? Because so Theo Epstein, smartest executive that I've ever talked to or been around, and I talked to a lot of them reporting that book, Pipeline to the Pros. Brad Stevens would probably be a close second. But Theo Epstein said that he really believed in the Bill Walsh theory that for leaders, if you hit a decade, the message just deaf ears. It falls on it. It could be the right message. You could be the right leader. It doesn't mean you're not a good leader. But if the same guys and the same team and the same people are hearing the same voice in the leadership position after a decade, eventually it's going to go stale. And so I think that is certainly a reasonable thing here. But Michael Malone is a good coach. And it's not like he's had a super team. And since he became a coach in the 2015, 2016 season, it's him and Steve Kerr, the only coaches to have amassed 450 wins or more and at least one title in that period of time. So I believe in the new coach bump. Like I think that can be a thing in basketball and in other sports, but Jamal Murray's hurt. There are fundamental personnel issues with that team on the defensive end of the floor and with the lack of health and availability of their clear-cut second best player that are not going to be solved by firing a coach. So I think the timing of it is the shocking part of it, not necessarily that it happened, but I don't also believe that they're better without Mike Malone. I don't.
So, I mean, you talked about Malone there, and I think that's all fair to say. Do you think it was the right timing then to fire Booth right now? Or do you think they should have waited on this as well and just the timing all is a mistake?
Listen, it's what, 3 games before the playoffs? Like the GM's job is done. Like the GM's job at this point in the season has really good seats. So I don't. If it was so bad behind the scenes that they were not speaking to each other, and then you're saying, well, so I'm firing both of you because neither one of you are right. You're both being petulant here. I'm firing both of you. Okay, I suppose that's reasonable. And maybe you would make the argument that if you just fire Booth, it makes it look like you're siding with Mike Malone in the power struggle. But who cares about that? Like the question should be, what helps the Nuggets win playoff games and playoff series this year when you have the best player on the planet who nobody wants to play? Like Minnesota matches up well with Denver. Like, okay, but no one wants to see Joker in a 7-game playoff series. So you need to be able to make a very convincing argument to me that the present of the Denver Nuggets is better without Malone. Without Booth, it doesn't matter at all for the present. Right? He has no impact on this playoff run. So to me, if you want to fire Booth, you can do that now. If you want to fire Malone, do it when you get eliminated from the playoffs. Because I just have a very hard time believing that you're better off for right now, today, the next couple of weeks without Mike Malone. I have a hard time believing it.
So here's the way I look at it. Have you ever watched The Bachelor or The Bachelorette? Have you ever watched that show?
Yeah, I'm so proud of my wife that she has finally given up on The Bachelor, so I don't watch it anymore. But for so many years of our relationship, she's like, I have to watch all these games with you. I'm like, you don't. But yeah, I've seen too much Bachelor in my life. Yes.
So you definitely know the point of a 2-on-1 date with The Bachelor and The Bachelor. For the listeners who don't know, in the Bachelor
pretty self-explanatory, no?
Yes, a 2-on-1 date. There's drama in the house. The Bachelor or Bachelor brings 2 people on that date, and sometimes they send one person home. Sometimes
one person's got to go home at the end of the day.
Yes, yeah. Yes, and sometimes 2 people go home though. Sometimes they send home both. And I think that's exactly what happened here with the Nuggets. That Kroenke and ownership saw Booth and Malone, and they said, hey, in all likelihood, we're going to fire Booth this offseason, but let's fire both right now because this team, 3 games left. What's the point of firing Booth now? What's the point of firing Malone now? Fire Malone now to get a look at Adelman. David Adelman, they're going to be the interim head coach. He's been kind of a guy that's been with some interviews. He has an opportunity to be a head coach at some point. Get a look at him. And with Booth, it's impart the drama. Getting rid of this drama that's been in the locker room and in the organization where you have Booth, who has openly talked trash about Malone to other front office members, to even media members. Booth created a culture in Denver where like front office members were afraid to talk to coaches and coaches were afraid to talk to front office members. So everybody's walking on eggshells. So, you know, Booth isn't all to blame there. Malone had a big mouth too. He didn't help matters. And there's a Booth camp and a Malone camp, and there's no collaboration between anybody. They had no relationship. They had no willingness to make a relationship. And with Malone, like, he didn't help matters. He gave Booth plenty to be frustrated about with roster decisions. Like last year, he's playing two-way guys over draft picks, two-way guys who aren't even eligible for the playoffs. Colin Gillespie's playing last season over Jalen Pickett. And this season, like a lot of these guys, Pickett doesn't get much of a chance until there's injuries, and he plays well when there's injuries. Other draft picks aren't getting consistent opportunities. And so, you know, Booth talked too much. And yes, you can blame some of the poor decisions he's made after losing KCP and losing Bruce Brown, but some of those rookies could have been good with opportunities. And Malone was stubborn. He was resentful. And as the longest tenured guy in the organization, all that's true. He made no effort to be the bigger man. He had made no effort to develop a relationship with Calvin Booth. And so it was a two-way thing with issues brewing over the course of the season. And my impression is that Kroenke and Nuggets ownership was like, okay, we're just going to get rid of both. Have a clean slate here, press the reset button, and hope this helps the culture, hope this helps the locker room, and make the most of this season that looks like a sinking ship if we don't do it.
Yeah, the truth is that it probably doesn't matter. Right?
Yes.
The truth is that it probably doesn't matter. And that's the thing that is a fascinating part about NBA coaching. Like, how many true difference-making coaches are there that they become blameless? Because most of them are expendable. It is a remarkable thing that since 2016, 5 coaches who have won championships have been fired within 2 seasons. Ty Lue, Frank Vogel, Nick Nurse, Bud, and now obviously Mike Malone. Like that is a remarkable thing, and it just speaks to, like, they don't matter that much, and you certainly don't get job security from winning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is crazy that this has become such a trend. Coaches that have had great success, even though, you know, Taylor Jenkins didn't win a title, the fact is that he was a successful coach for an extended period of time. And you have this happen all within weeks or days in the case of the Nuggets before the end of the regular season. And in some ways, I kind of respect it from like these decision makers, Kleiman, the GM of the Grizzlies, and then also Kroenke doing this with Denver, because you see this opportunity where, like, OKC is the favorite. We'll talk about contenders in the West, but they're not necessarily unbeatable. These teams feel like there's a chance. And so you're taking a big risk. It's something that could be super criticized in media by your fans, make people feel like they distrust you. And you're doing that to increase your chances this year. And so for Kroenke and the Nuggets here, you can, and I have knocked them for being cheap, but they do know winning. They own the Nuggets. They've won a championship there. They've won with the Rams in the NFL. They won with the Avalanche in the NHL. They now own Arsenal. So, you know, say what you want about their willingness to pay the tax in the NBA. They know what success looks like, at least. And so in this case, they're firing Booth, firing Malone, and now have an opportunity to have David Adelman as the head coach for 3 regular season games before they hope they make the playoffs. And he's always been the offensive coordinator. He's always been the offensive coordinator of that team. And granted, he can't seem to figure out the bench without Jokic. Well, it's an opportunity for him. You know, he seems well-liked by players to maybe fix the locker room there, because Malone lost the locker room. You know, Jokic liked him. Jokic still liked Malone, but it seems like a lot of the other guys in the locker room didn't like Malone. And, you know,
if you lose the locker room, you lose your job. You would think Joker would be enough to save him if he wanted to. He clearly didn't. Like, it wasn't that big of a deal for him to save him. And again, man, like the Nuggets are not good enough to win. They're not.
So you don't even have them in like the finals contender category. Like, they're just out.
To make
no
the
chance
finals?
To win the finals.
No.
Not even with Jokic being as dominant as he is. The guy that you said yourself, nobody wants to see him.
Nobody does want to see him. No one wants to see Giannis either. You can't win that way. It's very, very difficult. Some of these teams are really good. And you just like said it as an aside, and I know we're going to get to it. I am so surprised by this like reporting that has come out over the last 2 months about how just teams in the NBA are like, oh, we're fine being on the side of the bracket with the Thunder. Or like, you got to do it before we'll believe in you. Or the Thunder aren't that unbeatable. They seem to, and I know the last 2 games against the Lakers have worsened this argument that I've been making for a few months now on television, but I think they're very clearly the best team in the West. And I don't think that they're going to have much trouble in the Western Conference playoffs. These Lakers games have put a little bit of a dent in that theory, like I said, but I don't think that the Nuggets would have much of a shot against the Thunder in a 7-game series.